Will we see some changes to Auburn's starting lineup against LSU?
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Today's episode brought to you by Underdog. Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com with the promo code Locked On and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Happy Ferg Friday to all who celebrate. We're celebrating it today with Auburn Observer's Justin Ferguson. Weird game coming up tomorrow. We were talking about it a little bit before we clicked record, but sounds like we're probably going to see some changes along the offensive front. Reports coming out that Brandon Council probably starting at center. I like it, all things considered. Yeah. What's your response to that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Auburn has multiple guards that they really like compared to multiple center options now that you're down to, your third choice with Tate Johnson are out for the next 6 to 8 weeks. We've seen Auburn continue to rotate Cameron Stutts and Keiondre Jones. We've seen Alec Jackson a little bit more in the last couple of weeks. So you feel better about your guard options than necessarily dipping down into your centerpiece. I thought last week when Jaleel Irvin got into the game, I didn't think anything he did necessarily was like you couldn't see like a clear drop off or anything like that. But I think they're trying to figure out like, okay, what's the best five we can go with right now? And if it's getting another one of those guards in there and moving Council to center, I wouldn't be surprised. And also it's like you've seen Auburn the first few weeks of the season. I think there's been some really obvious like breakdowns in pass protection where guys are coming in and running free. I don't know what all Auburn's issues are up front. I think it depends on the protection. I think it depends on the call. But maybe there's something going on with IDing things before the snap. Maybe there's some things going on with communication. Council's played a lot of football. He's played some center before. Getting him on the field in that spot, it might help some things for Auburn. It's worth a shot. I think your offensive line the first 4 weeks of the season just has not been doing nearly as good enough as it should in order for Auburn to have a chance to win games. So why not change some things up?
So obviously this doesn't impact the tackles. It's still going to be Zaire and Troxel on the ends. What do you think this does for the guards? Do you think it's Keiondre Jones and Cam Stutts, or does Alec Jackson possibly get in there?
I wouldn't be surprised to see like if they roll with two of them, you still see the third one of those guys pop up. They have not been afraid
with rotating offensive linemen. Does that ever work?
It's had some things in the past where it's worked. But yeah, it's not necessarily something that you see consistently. I think it's one of more of those things where it's like, hey, we've got these two guys here. I think in the case of Stutts and Jones, I think it's in the case of like neither of these guys have kind of separated themselves, and maybe you're trying to find some of that. But I do think that the deeper you get in the season, you just don't want to do that anymore. So. I wouldn't rule anything out on the Auburn offensive line. Stutts did play some left guard in camp. So that's like a side of the ball we've seen him rep at. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Stutts and Jones, and you see Jackson if you need him. But then again, Keiondre Jones, didn't play much. Or might not have played at all. I think against Missouri. I think you saw Jackson more instead of him.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so there might be something there to that as well. I wouldn't be surprised if any of those three, any combo of those three is the one you go with.
Yeah, obviously this is following an injury. Auburn's starting center. I'm using air quotes if you're listening on audio. Starting center goes down, and so you got to respond to that. But I've said this earlier in the week. I probably said it last week too. Where at some point with the offense. The offensive line, the receivers, really everything but the running back. Making changes just for the sake of making changes because what you're doing right now isn't working, I'm all about. So I know this is in response to something negative, but I think it needed to be done anyway.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. And I think offensively, big picture, you got to change some stuff up anyway. 4 games of the season, you kind of are who you are in terms of your personnel. Things can get better, guys can get better, but like it's going to be hard to say like, okay, well, here's something magically new that we just discovered here this week, or we've been holding back. I don't think you're in that zone anymore. Can Auburn figure out ways to help out Robby Ashford more? Can Auburn figure out ways to manage their offensive line, find ways to just get it done without necessarily opening themselves up to the same stuff over and over again? Yeah. I think one of the easier ways to fix is Auburn. I think Auburn's got to find ways to run more on the outside. They're between the tackles. Runs this year have not been good at all, especially last week. And that Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter and those guys have some speed to hit the corner. So like there's stuff like that you can always tweak and you always improve. I don't think Auburn's just going to kind of keep going to the same old, but it's just like how much are they going to change at this point in the year is a valid question.
Yeah. And I'm there with you. And I kind of thought we would see more of that scheme change last week against Missouri. And I mean, obviously outside runs are one thing, but also like getting the running backs involved in the passing game, like quick passes to the outside, whether it's like a swing route or, passing the ball to wide receivers behind the line of scrimmage, which is essentially just an extension of the run game. I think Auburn needs a lot more of that, but we just haven't really seen it. But there was one pass behind the line of scrimmage last week to Coy Moore, and then that's when he reverse field. I can't think of another one if there was one.
There might have been a couple more, but not very many that were completed or worked. The other thing is like the Missouri game, as I wrote in the film room earlier this week. Like Missouri blitzed nearly 70% of all plays. They were sending their linebackers. They were very aggressive, and it didn't matter if it was a run or a pass. Those guys were crashing downhill, and it's like, okay, well, how do you counter that? Quick stuff over the middle, you just didn't see it nearly as much. You had that good completion to Amari Kelly in the red zone, but that was kind of it. That was kind of it for that. So LSU's defensive front's a lot better. They're a lot more versatile than what Missouri's got. They've got really good playmakers who can stand up and move around and put their hand in the dirt and all that. They're going to try to do some of the same stuff that Penn State and Missouri have done the last couple of weeks, which is walk a bunch of guys up, move them around, shake them up a little bit. Who's dropping, who's going, and like try to confuse not only Robby Ashford but Auburn's offensive line. So like, do you have some built-in counters for that? Because I would imagine LSU is going to be pretty aggressive.
Right. All right. You mentioned Amari Kelly. We talked about changes on the offensive line. Who are some other guys that we want to see more of going into LSU and moving forward? We touch on that in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. It is the easiest way to play fantasy sports, fantasy football, daily fantasy, season-long fantasy. It's where you need to go. It is so easy to get started. You can download the app or go to underdogfantasy.com and sign up today. It's available in 31 states. Alabama and Georgia are both included in that. It's where most of you are listening. Louisiana, I don't think. I know a lot of people in Louisiana are listening this week. I don't think it's available to you guys, but try it and let me know. Multiple ways to play. You can do drafts against other folks, whether it's daily or for the whole weekend. Bunch of different ways to play. Or you can pick higher or lower. They'll give you a player, and you can pick if they'll overachieve or underachieve, essentially, and you can make a slip out of that and win up to 20 times what you're wagering. It's so fun. So sign up with promo code Locked On, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Deposit $100, get $100 free. Go to underdogfantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in your app store or the Google Play Store. Get in on the college football pick'em action today. Justin, we talked about Council possibly having a different role, but you mentioned a guy like Amari Kelly. It kind of surprised me when we saw him in that early in the game. But who are some guys that you want to see more of in this LSU game and then just kind of moving forward?
This one's obvious, but like Javarius Johnson didn't get a target against Missouri, and it's like he was out there, he was running routes, but find a way to get the ball in his hands a lot more, because he is number 6 in the SEC this season in yards per route run. He is one of the top players, and I think he's number 7 right now in yards per catch. he's very efficient. He's arguably the most efficient player you have on your offense. So, like, get him the ball in his hands a lot more. Landon King is a guy that has only been targeted a couple times, but a guy that makes really good catches when he's on the field. I think it's a lot of the wide receivers. And, look, Auburn's tight ends are deep and they're experienced. And, like, John Samuel Shanker is out there a lot and getting a lot of targets. But against Missouri, when Auburn had multiple tight ends on the field, they averaged less than a yard a play. And I think when you have a guy like Robby Ashford out there, and you're going to operate a lot more naturally in shotgun sets, spread things out, like manipulate the defense a little bit more, put more wide receivers on the field, spread it out, create more room. That helps your offensive line. That also helps a quarterback that I think is just more comfortable in that environment. So, like, rotate some of those wide receivers in a little bit more. The tight ends, there's a lot of experience. I know you want to get those guys on the field, but statistically, they're not being nearly as efficient as pass catching options. You're now the quarterback's got to get the ball to him, of course, but you're having more success with your receivers, on the whole this season. And even some of these young guys we haven't seen as much, like Landon King, like Amari Kelly, like Keiondre Brown, Chick Dawson. There are a number of those guys that statistically, the numbers say, like, the more those guys are on the field, the better your offense has usually been.
Yeah.
But I think there's some of that where, like, if you're Auburn, you're still trying to do what you set out to do at the beginning of the year, is kind of be a little bit more pro style. I just think with the offensive line and with the quarterback change at this point, you're probably better off operating some in space and in like 11 personnel and stuff like that a lot more. Let's go back to the Missouri game. A couple of the best drives Auburn had all game were when they were kind of in pseudo 2-minute mode and they were throwing and running and kind of doing that stuff. That's not new. We've seen Auburn offenses under Gus kind of be in the same case. And it's just like, all right, how much do you adjust and how much do you put that? Like, they're still going to run between the tackles. They're still going to go under center. They're just going to use multiple tight ends on the field. I'm not saying abandon it. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying maybe the ratios can be tweaked a lot more, especially coming off of a game like the Missouri game where you only had 217 yards of offense.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up tempo next. I mean, it didn't take a whole lot of research and study and observation to realize, Robby Ashford seems way more comfortable when they're moving quicker. Mm-hmm. And do you think that'll be something we see more of when it's not a 2-minute drill situation? Because, like, I just don't believe that we will see that.
I don't either, just because it's like, I think they're going to try to help their defense out as much as possible, because Auburn's offense is too inconsistent at this point in the year to be like, all right, let's go hammer down. And then if you go hammer down, it's like, well, that's a 3-and-out that took 20 seconds instead of like 2 minutes, right? Like, that is, I think, some of that you have to keep in mind. You're wanting to help your defense out.
Back when his offense was killing in Oregon, and then even in the NFL with the Eagles, they wouldn't do the tempo until they got that first down.
It's like Gus thing as well, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty common. So maybe that's the way to counteract that. But
maybe you can go fast off of explosive plays. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good compromise. I think more teams need to do that, because it's like, all right, hey, you got the defense scrambling a little bit. Let's push the pace a little bit. But I think on a play per play basis, I think Auburn's going to want to take their time. They're going to want to play ball control. They're going to help their defense out, because they don't want their defense to wear down. And they know that's kind of the strength of their game. Also, this is not a team, I don't think, that is throwing the ball nearly as consistently enough to, justify doing that as much as, like, hey, even if the plays aren't over, like, even if you're not busting 5, 6, 7 yard runs every single play, running the ball and working the clock a little bit, it's going to be in their advantage. It's not sexy, but, like, it's kind of survival mode right now for this offense.
Yeah, no, I think survival mode's a good way to put it. The LSU defensive front, though, really concerns me in this match.
They're nasty. They're nasty.
Both from a rush defense perspective and a pass rush perspective. And just any way you can do to, like, make them more fatigued, I think you need to find a way to do it. And I think tempo would definitely help with that. But still, you're right. I mean, there's too many inconsistencies when you look at all the variables that go into running that successfully. But once again, I think you just need to try stuff for the sake of trying it at this point, because what you've done so far has been terrible. Jay Ferg, I'm going to get your thoughts on, like, specifically the second half. I mean, I think it was Nathan King that put out a tweet that was like the second half scoring outlook in the last 5 or 6 games against P5 opponents.
It's bad.
They haven't scored 7 points in the second half against any of the last 5, 6 P5.
And Justin Ferguson had that stat where it was like Auburn hasn't converted a third down in the fourth quarter since the end of the Mississippi State game.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, that one's wild as well.
How does it get that bad? Great question. I think that is historically awful.
Yeah, it's really rough. I think it's a combination of factors. I think it's the fact that since Bo Nix has gone down, this has not been any sort of an efficient offense. You're not getting consistent enough quarterback play for one, and it's really exposing a lot of your weaknesses, especially on the offensive line. But I also think as well, it's there's some of it where everybody will just say adjustments, adjustments to your offense, and I think you can tweak some things and change some things, but you got to be, I think, a little bit more proactive on some of that. Like if you're that bad after halftime, the defense is doing a lot better job against you. Okay, in the chess match as a coach, what are they doing more of? And are you doing enough, right? Are you doing enough schematically? Are you doing enough in terms of tweaking in order to stay ahead or try to stay ahead as much as possible? I think there's part of it. I think everybody's wanting to talk about second half adjustments and doing that this week. And I get it. 100% get it. And I think it plays a part into it. But I also think it's just this is not a good offense. And the more info the other team has on a bad offense, the deeper you get into the game, the more they know kind of what's giving you a harder time. So it's kind of a both and situation, much like everything with this offense. What Auburn can do schematically can be a whole lot better. Absolutely. What Auburn is doing can do in terms of execution can be a whole lot better. Absolutely. Like if you have anything to do with this Auburn offense, whether you're a coach or a player, you got a lot of work to do to get better. And I think the second half is just where that's really been exposed.
Yeah. And I've seen some folks talk about it's conditioning. And there's a joke about running stadiums or stairs in here somewhere if you want to make it. But just watching, it doesn't seem like it's a fatigue issue. It doesn't seem like this team is beat up or physically weak in the fourth quarter. It's just guys aren't winning battles. And I don't know. I don't think it's solely a talent thing. I don't think it's solely a conditioning thing. But
I think if it was a conditioning thing, sorry to interrupt, but I think if it's a conditioning thing, I think you would see your defense fall apart in the fourth quarter.
Good point.
More and
they're all doing the same workouts. That's a good point. But yeah, just as a coach, you've got to put guys in situations to win, and you haven't done it. You haven't done it at all, especially on offense. And so it's been tough to watch because you hate it for these kids because they're putting in the work and they're doing what their leaders are telling them to do, and it's just not turning into. Evidently, it's not even turning into third down conversions. I didn't even realize that. That is crazy. Since Mississippi State last year, you haven't converted a third down in the fourth quarter. That is wild, Jay Ferg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was a stat from Hoke. I can't take any credit for that. When he tweeted that last Sunday, I was like, whoa. That one. Yeah, that one was wild.
Yeah. All right. What can Auburn do to slow down this LSU offense? How much of a concern are Jayden Daniels' legs? And how can Auburn contain that? In just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Frisky Whiskey is the place to go for all of your adult beverage needs, whatever kind of beer, wine, spirits, whiskey. They've got you covered. Frisky Whiskey is about 15 to 20 minutes outside of the Auburn, Opelika, Lee County area. Right when you cross into Georgia, you will see billboards pointing you in the right direction. You go into Frisky Whiskey. It's right off of the exit. And you'll see 10,000 square feet of selection, 10,000 square feet of value, 10,000 square feet of just really anything you can imagine when you go into a liquor store. Also, their staff is extremely helpful, extremely knowledgeable, extremely friendly, but you cannot beat the prices at Frisky Whiskey. Try it off of I-85. So if you're coming into town this weekend, be sure to check out our friends at Frisky Whiskey. Make sure you have the most lit tailgate you could possibly imagine. Thank you to Frisky Whiskey for partnering with Locked On Auburn. Justin Ferguson, our guest, as he is every Friday. Before we jump into how Auburn's defense can help them win this game tomorrow, tell folks what they're missing out on at the Auburn Observer.
Well, this was a pretty fun week at the Observer. We did film room on Auburn's offense against Missouri. And some of the stuff we talked about earlier, there's a lot that went wrong, and there's a lot that should have gotten a lot better. But I think it's also like, hey, what kind of worked a little bit against Missouri, and how could Auburn use that more? Also did a story on Auburn's wide receivers, some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, by getting those guys on the field more. Did a basketball story. Hey, guess what, fans? KD Johnson says he's going to be more explosive. He lost almost 20 pounds from this time last year.
Wow.
And as someone who's watched some practice here in this first week, I tend to agree. He does look more explosive. So story on that. Did a preview of Auburn LSU and then talked some SEC football with my buddy Brody Miller from The Athletic. That was a podcast that went up on Thursday. Huge mailbag out. It's always on Friday. And then we'll have coverage over the weekend. Whatever happens for Auburn and LSU and the fallout that could happen from it or not happen. Who knows? AuburnObserver.com. It's $60 a month or $60 a year to get everything we do. And like I always say, whether it's a newsletter or a podcast, we email it to you so you can read and listen on your own time, usually 6 a.m. Central Time most mornings.
Yes, absolutely. Worth every penny. AuburnObserver.com. My annual subscription re-upped this week, and I did not even hesitate. I was like, yes, thank you.
I would love to hear that. There's a lot of people whose subscriptions re-upped either a couple weeks ago or this week because of when we launched. Also, real quick, if I can do a really, really quick plug, we've got T-shirts at Home Field Apparel. Just Google Auburn Observer T-shirt. You can get
cool.
it. Yeah, you can check that out as well.
Yep, for the brand, absolutely. All right, so how can Auburn slow down Jayden Daniels? We talked about this a few weeks ago after San Jose State because they had a pretty mobile quarterback. Mercer did not really have a mobile quarterback. He still got out of the pocket consistently. Have you seen any changes with how Auburn is using their edge rushers, mainly Eku Leota and Derick Hall, and how they treat containment? I haven't seen a whole lot of a change. Am I wrong on this?
I don't think I've seen a lot of a change. I don't think they've also been tested in that regard a ton. I think Eku and Derick, and I thought Marcus Bragg played a great game last week against Missouri.
Sure.
What
a surprise he's been. He's been great.
He has had a great start. I think Auburn's edge rushers are doing pretty well to start the year. And I think those are your guys that you want to lean on in this game. You want to be smart about, the way they rush the passer. Jayden Daniels can run. LSU's leading rusher this season is Jayden Daniels. They have not been able to run the ball effectively. They've got an offensive line. Not saying they have as many problems as Auburn does or as many problems as Missouri had last week, but they're starting 2 true freshmen, which is very, very rare, especially in the SEC. And then they also were dealing with an injury on the interior that they're having to kind of shuffle some pieces around. You're on the road. This is their first true road environment. They played State at home. They played Florida State in New Orleans. If the crowd's up for it, you can get it. You can get it because, Jayden Daniels, I don't think, not to disrespect the Pac-12 too much, even though I love doing it, don't think Jayden Daniels has been in an environment quite like a Jordan-Hare at night when it's amped up. So you hope if you're Auburn, it is amped up. And also, I think Auburn's defensive front is clearly the best ones they faced this season. They really got after Florida State. Really got after Jayden Daniels in the opener. This is the key. This is the key for Auburn's game. If Auburn can rattle Jayden Daniels, make some mistakes, force some sacks, get it ugly, get it sloppy, get it defensive, you've got an opportunity there because you're playing at home. On the flip side, Auburn's own offensive line against LSU's defensive front might be an even worse matchup for the offense in that sense. But I think this defensive front stepped up last week against Penn State. They didn't really affect the game. They didn't affect the game too much against Penn State. They really did against Missouri. Gave Auburn a chance to win. No, it's not perfect. No, they make mistakes. There's still some really weird issues, I think, Auburn with like getting plays in and like being aligned on some of these runs. Yeah. It's not going well there. Still giving up some shots downfield. But hey, you gave up 14 points and a lot of 3 and outs. Like they did enough to win that game. You're going to need that kind of defensive effort again to have a chance to beat LSU. And good thing is that Auburn's playing at home. So the defense should have a little bit more edge to them because of the crowd.
Yeah. At home at night against LSU, like it should be a rowdy crowd for sure. As far as ramifications of the outcome of this game, Jay Ferg, if they lose, everybody's going to be calling for Bryan Harsin to get fired this weekend.
Right.
I do not think it will happen. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really don't know what it looks like. It's interesting because It's interesting because Auburn doesn't have a permanent AD in place right now. I do think Auburn is trying to move towards getting a permanent AD here in the next few weeks, months, just to in case
it seems like the decisions. It seems like the decisions are made from like an AD standpoint. They just have to like do formalities. Is that the vibe you're getting?
And it's like I think they want to have somebody in place if they do make a hire. Like I think they're going to want to have something like that. I think Georgia Tech's currently doing the same thing right now, where it's like we're going to hire an AD and then we're going to hire a football coach off of that. So like, there's some of that you got to deal with as well. It's interesting, right? Because I'm going to lay out a scenario for you here. If Auburn loses to LSU this weekend, what would you rather do if you're Auburn? Would you rather have an interim head coach go into Athens, or would you rather wait for that interim coach to have their first game maybe after an off week, maybe heading into Ole Miss? Who knows? The one thing I want to think is interesting is if Auburn doesn't play well at all against LSU and they lose, go back to what Nebraska just did with Scott Frost. Nebraska was about to play Oklahoma, and they fired Scott Frost earlier that week. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a question of like when you get into the Georgia game, do you want people to still be talking about Bryan Harsin or not if he loses? And I think that's the decision you got to make because it's going to be rough for whoever's on the sideline, I think, in Athens. Because Georgia's the best team in the country, and it's a place where you haven't had any success in nearly 20 years.
Yeah, going into the season, Ferg, I was really into, okay, as soon as you know that he's not it, move on. My opinion has changed after that because if you move on from him, you still have to pay him the same amount of money unless there's a negotiated buyout, which I don't know why he would do that. And then everybody's complaining about recruiting efforts. It doesn't help that. I don't think it fixes that at all.
Hurts it.
And, yeah, if anything, I think it hurts it. I agree with you. Because, like, your interim's not going to be out there going as hard. So, like, I don't know. I don't know about all that. And then the whole, like, does it make your team better for the next 3 weeks if you fire Harsin? Like, I don't think so. You know, if you think it makes the program better from this year to next year, like, that's cool. But in the short term, like, I just don't think there's any difference between doing it now or at the end of the season. And I think you actually, and maybe not like the literal end of the season, but closer towards the end of it, because I do think there's value in like getting on the market earlier than other people. But until the AD thing is done, I don't know why you would do it.
That's a good point. It's like there is value in being ahead of the game. You're now going to be number 4 in terms of Power 5 teams. And I think Nebraska is really the only one that's in your ballpark in terms of what you can offer them. But as the status of a program, But it's like, if you don't have a permanent AD in place, are you waiting for that? Is the interim crew going to be the ones who can push forward there? There's a lot of decisions that have to be made. So I think it's one of those things where it could go either way. I think how it looks in a loss would mean a lot. And I also think that, it's so weird that 9-point, 8-point dog for Auburn. Like if they win that game, they're like the weirdest 4-1, 2-0 SEC team we've ever seen heading into Athens next week. And it just, I think, going into back-to-back road games before an off week, I think that changes the dynamic a little bit if they do win this game. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. A lot can shift this weekend.
I've gotten a lot of DMs and messages on Discord and comments on YouTube about asking my thoughts on who Auburn's next head coach will be. I'm not going to talk about that until it's done. Bryan Harsin is still Auburn's head coach. I'm not talking about any of the rumors or the short list or anything like that.
If you read my mailbag, I kind of taken the same approach. Now, there have been a couple of radio interviews I've done, and then I think our last podcast, we kind of moved into these waters a little bit more than I would have liked to. So I'm kind of being hypocritical here, and I apologize for that. But I'm with you. Like as long as until a decision is made, I don't know how much value there is in talking about what's going to happen next until that next is actually available to happen. And like I said, I've been hypocritical of that this week, even on my own podcast.
It's hard not to though, because
because it's what people are talking about, right? It's what people are talking about. But I will say, like, if Bryan Harsin is not the head coach at Auburn next week, next month, next year, whatever, there will be plenty of time to discuss all this.
Yeah, it's not going to be quick. If it happens during the season, we're going to have months to talk about it. So,
because you're probably not getting anything until the end of November, early December.
Yeah, because everybody that's on the short list has jobs. So,
You would imagine that. You would imagine the guy you're hiring should be coaching in some pretty significant games down the stretch.
You would think.
That would help.
Ferg, one more time, how can people sign up for everything you got going on?
Yeah, AuburnObserver.com, $6 a month or $60 a year. Buy our shirts at home field. We're going to have a lot of stuff this weekend. Whatever happens between Auburn and LSU, win or lose. So check that out.
Yep, absolutely. I'll put that link to the home field shirt in the episode description.
Appreciate that.
Down below.
Nice.
Be sure to check that out. Home field stuff. Yeah, they do a good job. So, hey, be sure to tune in Sunday morning. Daryl Dapprich will be joining us for a little morning after action. Should be a crazy game to recap. You can read all my written work at auburndaily.com. And we'll see you next time right here on Locked On Auburn.